Trump spoke to reporters last hour in Paris after leaving the G7 summit. When asked about CUSMA, Trump said the U.S. would be better off without it, and he's thinking about terminating the deal.
Well, it's not something that's, to me, I think it's better without it. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of it. I liked it because it got us out of NAFTA. In other words, after 6 years, you had a clause that got us out of NAFTA. That's the thing I liked about it most. We do better without an agreement.
Do you want to just leave it enrolling?
I would rather leave it unsigned. I'd rather have it terminated.
You'd rather have it terminated? Oh, those are different things, sir. I just want to be clear.
I would rather not have the agreement, but I may sign it.
Right.
But we do better as a country if we don't have an agreement.
So are you thinking of...
Yeah, I'm thinking about maybe we won't be able to make a deal. I would rather not have the USMCA. The primary reason I wanted it was because there was no way out of NAFTA, which was the worst trade agreement ever made, like ever. And they had no termination. And it was very hard to get USMCA for that reason. And I had a 6-year clause. Who would have thought I would have been here in the 6 years? They got it 6 years because they hoped I wouldn't be here. My term was supposed to be over with. So on top of everything else, it comes to, I would prefer not having an agreement, but I'm open to doing it. We'll see what happens.
So as of now, it's just going to stick around for 10 years. You're okay
We're
with
not,
that?
no, it's not sticking around. It'll be terminated. In other words,
after a decade.
It expires.
Yeah, in a decade.
It expires.
Okay.
I prefer that.
In the first paragraph.
I view it as possibly expiring immediately.
Let's bring in CBC senior business reporter Peter Armstrong for more on this. So, Peter, what do you make of Trump's comments there?
Andrew, how many times have you and I sat here and parsed to the nth degree the words that come out of the president's mouth and try to make sense of what he said, only to have the complete opposite thing be said 10 hours later, 5 hours later? So I caution everybody listening to this to take this with a grain of salt, to understand the nuances of what he's said. He could have, in answer to those questions, I believe that was Josh Wingrove, a Canadian from Bloomberg, asking those questions, and he could very well have in that moment said, you know what, we have the right to get out of this, we're exercising that right. That's not what he said. What he said is, we see it possibly expiring immediately. That's not a thing.
He said, I'd rather it expire. I'd rather
it expire. Sure. I mean, there is nobody, even the most optimistic people on this file, that think the July 1st deadline to renew it is going to be met by anybody. Nobody thinks that's going to happen. What we think is going to happen is that talks are going to go, and maybe there's some kind of an agreement that we can knock off some of the trade irritants and come to an agreement down the road to extend it. I'm not entirely sure how likely that is. I don't believe anybody who says they have great insight into what they think is actually going to happen. But there was a line amidst all of that. Yeah. And like I say, let's not get into the game of parsing him, but I'm going to parse a little bit. He said, I don't want to do it. I'd rather not have it, but I'm open to doing it. Which, Andrew, of all the things that Donald Trump has said, that might be the first time I've heard him say that. That might be the first time I've heard the U.S. president say, I am open to something. And take with that what we heard from U.S. Ambassador Pete Hoekstra earlier this week, where we have seen a very clear change in tone from him. And he says, look, all of this stuff, when he says we don't need anything, he's a guy looking to make a deal. He's inviting you to come to the table and make a deal. Yeah. I'm open to doing it if we're going to parse what he said, which clearly I'm doing, even though I said we shouldn't do it. I think that's the part to sort of glom in on and say, well, if he's open to doing it, what are the terms? He's supposed to be the great deal maker. What are the terms that would allow him to do it? And I think, that's what we heard a little bit from Dominic LeBlanc and Janice Charette that were on this trip and met with Ambassador Greer, the U.S. Trade Representative, on this trip. So don't make too much of it. Yeah. The stuff that you want to pay attention to, he said, maybe we don't want to make a deal. Maybe I'm open to expiring immediately, all of those things. But he also said, I'm open to doing it, open to making some kind of a deal, which I think is at the very least interesting.
It's interesting. And listen, look, he's the president of the United States, so he is the one that will sign something or not sign something or rip it up. I mean, he is the one. So that's why we got to do this. Yeah. And it is less than 2 weeks away in terms of, as you say, very unlikely that there's going to be something.
But I think there's going to be a lot of movement between now and then. Right. We now know, and we heard from Dominic LeBlanc yesterday, that there are a list of irritants that the Americans have raised. Sounds like there's a list of irritants the Canadians have raised. And you don't need to squint too much at the outline to figure out what those irritants are. And it sounds like at least the easy ones are getting sort of ticked off, right? He was way harder on the Mexicans today than he was on the Canadians, which is often a very interesting thing when they start doing that. Listen, there's going to be, these next couple of weeks are going to be really interesting. There are going to be all kinds of things said, all kinds of things leaked. But like what happens on July 1st is that the agreement, nothing happens. It continues to exist for another 10 years to 2036. That's when it by default terminates.
Or, I mean, he suggested it. He said, I'd rather not have it. I'm looking at it possibly expiring immediately. I know that it's not immediate. It's 6 months notice. That is an option.
That is an option. Right. And that's what I mean when I said he could well have made that more clear. Right. He could well have said, you know what? I don't like this deal. I think it's bad for America. We want out. We're going to give and every party, the Canadians, the Mexicans, the Americans, all have the legal right to give 6 months notice and withdraw completely from CUSMA, USMCA, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Nobody said that yet. And of all of the things that Donald Trump has mused about, like he's literally mused about using economic force to take over the country more than he has ever mused about withdrawing entirely from the agreement. So again, heapings of grains of salt to go with these words. But again, the part the part that stood out to me was when he said, all of these terrible things, it's a disaster of a deal. I only used it to get out of NAFTA, and I don't want to extend it, but I'm open to doing it. I think if you're Dominic LeBlanc, you're Janice Charette, or you're Ambassador Wiseman, and you're listening to that, you think, all right, jibe it with what Hoekstra said about make him an offer. Let's see if we can make a deal. That sounds like he's at least open to a deal. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being absurdly optimistic.
Well, you know, I think there will be a range of opinions on this about what it means,
and there will be a range of opinions for the next 2 weeks. It's going to be a lot to cover.
Absolutely, and you'll be here for it, and so will I. Okay, Peter, thank you. We'll do it again, I'm sure, soon. CBC senior business reporter Peter Armstrong.